My name is Markus Fjørtoft, former football player, and then since retired, when I realized I couldn't become Arsenal captain, so went on for hopefully greater pastures. And of many things that I do, I run the football channel with my father, Jan Fjørtoft, where we focus on German football in English. So a good and nice little community, or big actually, fast growing, with over 50,000 subscribers. So a very rewarding project as such.
Cool. So let's kick it off here. How's this World Cup in your view being anticipated by Norwegian fans and just
Sorry, I broke up there. Can you hear me?
yeah, I got you.
Yeah, there we are. Well, I think for us as Norwegians, we have to remember that we haven't been to the World Cup since 98. We went to two consecutive World Cups in 94 and 98. And 93, 94, we were second on the FIFA ranking behind Brazil. It was an historical time. And we've kind of always looked back to that time as when we were great. The times in which, we were fighting with the very best, when we were qualifying for World Cups and finishing qualifications ahead of the Netherlands and England and what have you, beating Brazil in the 98 World Cup. And these are these historical moments that stuck with us. We went to the Euros in 2000s, and then we didn't see a tournament since. I can't remember. I remember faintly, I'm born in 94, of us playing in the year 2000, the Euros. But since then, it's been disappointment followed by disappointment, sadly. And now we're in a World Cup. We have the world's best striker. We have the Arsenal captain. We have a squad filled with strong quality players. And like any nation, then we get incredibly carried away. And we are not only happy about making the World Cup, we are going to go far in it. And so I think we are sharing within the overall enthusiasm that people have, that we are the underdogs as such. I am more realistic, perhaps pessimistic, and we can get into that. But overall, Norwegians, of course, we are incredibly excited. And let's see. It's a tough group, so let's just try and get ourselves out of that one first.
Let's tap into the pessimism, Marcus, because this is what I'm finding is
that
that fans super happy about just making it to the World Cup. No, it doesn't matter the country unless maybe you're Brazil or one of those. But then when you discuss the media, like the people who are supposed to have the footballing opinions, dark clouds start to appear. So what are you seeing in the offing? Is it the difficulty of the group? Is it the health of the squad? Like what are the issues there?
I think it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. If we start with the squad, people will know that we are, I wouldn't necessarily call us top heavy in that sense. I think we've become better defensively, but there is no hiding the fact that our strengths lie in the offensive. We obviously have an Erling Haaland, we have a Martin Ødegaard, we have a Sander Berge at Fulham, who's the stabilizer in the middle. You have Antonio Nusa at RB Leipzig, who's probably a better performer on the national team than he has been for RB Leipzig, even though we see that in moments. We have Alexander Sørloth, who is, playing second fiddle to Erling Haaland. Everyone does, it's inevitable, but he's adapted incredibly well, playing sort of off the right of Erling Haaland in a 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1, really, because Haaland he's not one to play with a striking partner as such, and Solbakken and the manager has done well in terms of how he's adapted that for Haaland, but also giving credit to Sola how he's done that. But then we go into the defensive work, of course, and you start from the right. You have Ryerson, and then you have Ayer, Hegem, and Müller-Wolfe. So Müller-Wolfe doesn't, has lost his spot at Wolves. Ayer a bit in and out at Brentford. Hegem playing for Bologna, but a bit. And then you have Örjan Nyland, who hasn't started a game for Sevilla since September. So that's when you're starting to go into the more of the question marks as to, okay, well, when you are going up against a Michael Olsen and Mbappe, or you're going against a Sadio Mane or what have you in the group stages, well, how does that then look? And I think that's where my pessimism kind of roots in. And this is the fact that we are perhaps as well balanced as people might think. And then the last point really is experience. Tournament, I think we can't underestimate the fact that, yes, on paper it's great, but how much does this team have experience within a tournament format when you're playing a World Cup? How does that really look? We're dealing with humans here rather than kind of robots, in the sense that we know the quality, But given the fact that you play an opening game against Iraq or you're playing France, what does that then look like? What does that invoke in players? And I hope they respond well, but nonetheless, they don't have the experience as a team. So I think that can't be underestimated when we're talking about tournament experience.
What is Norway's footballing culture in the sense of like I watching Olympic sports? It seems like Norway, even in some winter, obviously dominate. Summer, even doing well on the track and different things. Does what is the footballing culture like? Is football the top sport? Are there other sports that compete with it? Like, does football get the best?
Good question. I mean, we are a winter nation. We always remind people that every 4 years in terms of how dominant we in fact are with the skiing and across the board. But we are a footballing nation, and everyone that grows up play football. They'll ski. You know, most people will ski whether you play football or not. But football is the main sport, and that's what you grow up with. And so, for Norway's case, it's a pretty unprecedented time over this last, let's say, decade in terms of the talents that we're fostering, in terms of how many players we have playing at the very top level. And then we can talk about, well, what does that talent development model look like? I saw over the Olympics, it was trending this topic about, well, what Norway do in terms of the lack of specialization and you know, in terms of when they start peaking into and when you start specializing into your teams, and that was later, maybe 12, 13 years old and what have you. It's obviously not always as binary as that. There will be that degree, but we foster more of an inclusive environment as such. And then I think it's also a result of the fact that you need some pioneers that open up the field for the rest of them. If you have a Martin Ødegaard who gets bought at 15 years old, you have an Erling Haaland that goes abroad early, then often scouts, clubs will look to those markets and say, oh, well, here's a good market. And I think that has enabled more Norwegians to get the chance abroad. And that sort of has that compounding effect.
Cool. So I've been asking people this question as well. It's related. What's the condition of Norwegian football, both domestically and its ability to export players? Is it in a healthy place, would you say, relative to its own standard, or is it maybe more off color?
No, I would say it's in a very healthy place now, given the fact that we find a lot of Norwegians within academies abroad. We have players. If you look at our overall squad as well, in terms of the players coming off the bench as well, like some Oscar Bob, obviously, who's struggling to find form for Fulham, but a player that went to City, who's gone to the academy, came up in and around Oslo. And then you have players playing abroad that, you know, in Bologna, we have mentioned Hegem, who will start for us as center back. You know, he was playing with another Norwegian in the back there who we don't even, who's kind of, we barely notice. I mean, when Sørloth was top scorer in La Liga, it was like kind of, oh, well, yeah, okay. So our expectations are now completely different. There was a time when we were looking back and we saw John Carew scoring 7 goals for Villa in the Premier League season. We were getting carried away, you know. So certainly the expectations and what we got used to shifted when you have the players that we do.
So let's talk about the qualification then. In my mind and in my notes, I'm like, is there any bit of pity for Italy? But no, obviously, right?
No. Well, I mean, yeah, well, we joke around. We say we have an easy group because we had Italy in our group, you know. But it's bad to say. But in terms of how they performed over the last qualifications, I mean, we won that qualification group as convincingly as you come. We scored the most goals. You know, when we played Italy, we beat them 3-0 at home. We beat them 4-1 away. I was there in Milano, and I couldn't believe my eyes in terms of what we were actually witnessing. And and then we had Moldova, we had Israel, and Estonia. And so the way we went about that was, we had some scares. We played Estonia away. They could have easily equalized towards the end there. But other than that, it was a pretty convincing draw. And then the question is, well, what does it look when we go up against these other teams in the likes of a France that we haven't met the real kind of scope of? We played Netherlands in the last international break, but Holland wasn't playing and what have you. And so it wasn't really, and then we played Switzerland at home, but on a catastrophic surface at home. So we don't really, so it's hard to say, you know, in terms of what are our references as to when we're playing, and when we are playing like we won't play the profile of a team of Senegal ever before, you know. So how does that look like? And so I think that's where you kind of associate the question marks with. But in terms of asking for the qualification, it's convincing. as it comes, and scoring goals and playing rather entertaining football in the process.
What's been the organizational kind of setup leading up to the World Cup? Like, do you know who they're going to play in friendlies, maybe to get a taste of a team like Senegal or a team like France? Like, who do they have scheduled, perhaps?
Well,
if you know.
Yeah, if you allow me to look it up right now, we have Sweden on the 1st of June is what we have. So if Sweden, which obviously will go to the World Cup, and that's what we have scheduled. But that's the only thing that makes me worried, because even when you look through that group, we'll obviously have to win against Iraq. That's a must-win game. The first game, which we cannot underestimate in terms of the excitement and nerves that comes with it. We play a Senegal, which I think will be decider for the second place, AFCON champions or not, depending on what camp you are in. And then you play France, and then you can say, well, if France have won against their games against Iraq and Senegal, then France can play their B team. But their B team is equal to the A team,
right.
And if anything, they'll maybe play with even more kind of vigor. And wanting to prove themselves. So that's what I think is the challenge for us in terms of the overall profile of teams, and also how we look, how we will respond, and because we will need our best players in form as well. And I'm glad to see someone like Martin Ødegaard then coming back into form, and probably maybe benefited Norway the fact that he's played less games as well in terms of overall impact.
So let's talk about the coach. Who's the coach? What style of play should we expect from him?
Ståle Solbakken, former national team player. I think first point is I think it's a big benefit, the fact that he has played. He was part of that 90s team, so he's been part of the kind of prime period for Norway in terms of what that represented for us. So he has that tournament experience. Been a manager, made his name really at FC Copenhagen, where he got to the Champions League, beat Barcelona under Pep Guardiola. Got into a fight with him. But that's kind of what started his career before he was in Norway as well. And then he had lesser fortunate stints at Wolves, at Köln, but always a person that gives it straight. And that's what I appreciate with him on a personal basis in terms of his personality. He's pretty forthcoming, pretty honest, transparent in his press conferences. I also think he deserves credit for the fact that early on, even before Arteta named Martin Ødegaard captain, Solbakken named him captain. He named Martin Ødegaard captain. He was young at the time. Martin Ødegaard made his debut at 15, but he gave him the captaincy pretty early on when he took over and said, I'm going to build my team around Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland. And Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland are the players they are now, and they were certainly on their way to becoming what they are now then, but nonetheless, being deliberate about that. But there was question marks. We didn't qualify for the Euros. We didn't qualify for Qatar. We really needed this to qualify for this as well. And he promised that, well, we definitely will qualify for Euro 2024, which we didn't. And then you looked at the player material. I also think he's gotten more, as I alluded to initially as well, how he's figured out the Sørloth-Haaland issue. Sørloth is an out-and-out striker. When he comes on for Atletico Madrid, he'll come on as a 9. But for Norway, he will play off the right, and he does very well in terms of in the way he's able to adapt to that. And then I think what Norway have now as well is a very strong culture, a very tight-knit group that are good friends, and he's been able to bring about that culture. And so I think he deserves a lot of credit because, stars don't necessitate success in that sense, and he's done well in creating that environment for the players and for someone like Erling Haaland, for Martin Ødegaard. Erling Haaland is vice captain as well. They want to come back to the national team. They want to be part of it, and they play as many games as they play. They always want to and try to play for the national team, and I don't think that's a given at all times either.
Cool. So let's talk about Ødegaard specifically. How central is his health specifically to the success of this team?
I think we need Erling Haaland. We need Martin Ødegaard, and we dealt with Martin Ødegaard's absence decently well. And the Italy game without him, we dealt with him well. We've also gotten a boost in the fact that Aursnes, who plays for Benfica, he had retired from the national team, not because of age, because he's 29, 30, but rather because he wanted the focus on Benfica. Since come back as well, which strengthens it. But when you look at Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland, I would argue that Arsenal have missed that as well, is in his ability to break down low blocks in order to find spaces in those moments. And Martin Ødegaard and Erling Haaland are not only good friends, but they have a pretty good relationship and understanding. And we know that in terms of Erling Haaland's runs, and we sometimes said, well, why can't Man City find him in behind? Why can't they find those spaces? Martin Ødegaard can do that because he is a very, very good player and has a very good understanding with Erling Haaland. So yeah, we are just crossing our fingers that his injury situation now has stabilized. Now he's played 2 games on the trough for Arsenal at this time of speaking as well. So that will be, our success is tied to the success of these 2 players.
I'm going to ask you a tricky question. Someone who watches Bundesliga religiously, but also Norwegian.
Yeah.
Best striker in the world, is it Kane or is it Haaland? And either way, projecting Haaland at his best, what do you think we get to see on this specific stage, like the biggest stage that football has to offer?
Well, I think the biggest players perform at the biggest stages, right? And what Erling Haaland proves time and time again is his ability to do that. And it goes without saying that we will need him to be at his best form. And also, I think what you will see from Erling Haaland on the national team, sometimes we've called out the fact that, well, why isn't he getting more involved? And we're counting the amount of touches he has in a half. And that's a separate discussion that annoys me. But that is his role at Manchester City. What you will see with the national team as well is, you will have spells where he's not as involved. But at the same time, you will see him come maybe sometimes slightly deeper. Maybe he will get more involved. Maybe you'll see him more on the dribble. And I think that takes me back to his time at Dortmund as well, where you can see that when he gets up to speed, when he gets the ball and he runs on defenses like he does, he's a very, very good player. And I think sometimes people tend to forget that.
I'm one of those people. Are we dodging the Kane question?
Oh, back to the question. Good one. I think, as a Norwegian, I will stick to Erling Haaland and say Kane is very, 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 very close by. But as a Bundesliga fan, it is no doubt that what he's performing in terms of being the most complete striker, I think we must admit that Harry Kane is that. And Harry Kane has become the most complete striker over, I'd argue, the last 2-3 seasons in terms of what he does and what he represents as a striker. I would say, he can be a clinical goal scorer, but he's also a quarterback at the same time. And that's, for me, when I look at his age and the stage of his career is in, the way he's evolved, it is to watch Bundesliga regularly and see how he performs is it's impressive. And I think he's taken a step or 2 since his Tottenham days.
So who are maybe the other names? We mentioned Sorloth, we mentioned Berg. Who are some other names that you think are in a good moment? And then maybe go deeper into the squad and maybe unearth someone that we don't know that much about, but you think he'll perform well.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that we never heard of before, but we've seen Antonio Nusa be linked to Tottenham when he was at Club Bruges. And I said that he performs better than the national team than he does in RB Leipzig, which is the fact in the terms of his overall consistency. But when Antonio Nusa is on the ball, he is, I'd say, our most exciting player to watch. And I include Erling Haaland and Martin Ødegaard within that, just because of the sheer flair he has as a winger. His specialty, which I love, is, he comes off the left and he comes into the field and hits the cross sort of early and gets those. And that we've seen a lot of goals there with Erling Haaland coming off the back post. Nusa cuts in. He has the change of pace. He has the flair to beat his man and then also get down to the byline, but also go into the field as well. So I expect this to be a breakthrough tournament for Antonio Nusa as well, because yes, we've seen him at RB Leipzig and we've seen him in the Bundesliga, but he hasn't, I don't think, captured that next level of attention. And when you see Antonio Nusa for the national team, it is a very, very special player. And then we also have an Oscar Bob, who we were saying, well, do we play Antonio Nusa and Oscar Bob? Unfortunately, Oscar Bob struggled with a long-term injury at City, didn't really come back. Fulham signed him, not really found himself in the team. But another player who, when getting onto the ball, is a difference maker, has an X factor. And that's what I think is special about Norway now, is the type of players that we are developing. We have a Sheldrup at Benfica who scored against Netherlands. watch that goal because I think it embodies him well. Has Denzel Dumfries on the right back, a change of pace, is able to cut in a beautiful goal, and that is someone we have off the bench coming as well. So in terms of sheer X factor, I think we have the profiles. Another is Jurgen Strand Larsen, who plays for Palace, scored 14 goals for Wolves last season, finds himself now playing at Palace, and essentially, playing kind of a reserve role. Came on against Italy, scored the 4-1 goal. Another, I think it beat Bastoni there as well. So we have those different makers, and then it comes down to, again, the back four and the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper situation is one in which we are talking about making the Bodeglimt goalkeeper, the Russian goalkeeper who was Bodeglimt's goalkeeper, who went deep in the Champions League, as we know. He's got his Norwegian citizenship. So we are saying, can we make him our first choice goalkeeper? I don't think that will be the case. I think Solbakken will pick him and take him on in the squad. I don't think he will play. I think he has a loyalty to Nyland. Nyland hasn't really done anything to qualify for him to lose his spot other than not playing, which is far from ideal, but his performances in the national team have been all right. So that is his situation. I'm not worried about going forward and what we can create. It's more so how we can handle the go in the back. Even though they improved, we have an Ayer, I rate Ayer, we have Hegem. It's good physical profiles, players that can play out from the back. But defensively, that's where I think will stop us from winning the World Cup.
So let's talk floor, let's talk ceiling. How bad can it be? How good can it be?
Bad is group stages, that we're out of the group stages. That is, you play a first game against Iraq, maybe you play a draw, maybe you have some nerves, or you win against Iraq, but you find it tough against Senegal, AFCON champions or not, and France, one of the best in the world. So, then it's maybe a case of us going through the third qualification spot, but let's say that doesn't happen because of points accrued. So we're out. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario,
dream, Marcus. Dream big.
The dream. Well, you see. I mean, Croatia goes to the World Cup final. They have the equivalent of a population that we do, but they built a culture over a long time in terms of doing that. I think if we go to quarterfinals, we would be delighted. Absolutely delighted if we're able to go up to the group stages and win 2 games. At our best is our top level there that we can compete and go to quarterfinal. Yeah,
it's a bit strange because Norway, as you say, haven't been to a World Cup since '98, and normally when people haven't been to a World Cup in so long, the happiness or the joy is just to be there, just to be a part of it. But it feels like this Norway team, because they have that dark horse tag. I don't know how you feel about that, but because they have that tag of like the best team you're not paying attention to, the best team that's not one of the favorites that could win, all of that. It feels like there's a bit of pressure on this team that maybe shouldn't exist. How do you feel about that? Like, is there pressure to succeed?
When too many people say someone's a dark horse, so you're no longer a dark horse, you're actually like favorites. That's the scenario I feel that we're in. And so that's my only concern is people say, I'll tell you what about Norway. I'll tell you what. And listen, it's totally fair. We have Martin Ødegaard, we have Erling Haaland, we have a strong foundation, like a strong core of players that are playing at a very good level. If this was our second or third tournament, then I'd say, maybe, because we know we built a culture for it. But like anything else, it's like when we won our Nations League group, and people might think that, you're talking about Nations League. It was a small win. It was the fact that we'd won a group. It's the fact that we ended ahead of Austria. That was a big kind of cultural moment for us within the team. Then it was winning the group itself and qualifying. That was another win. I'm careful of being too, I don't know, greedy is the word, but in the sense that we're going out to a World Cup, that's another level. And for us to, so we've gone here, we've struggled with that, and now we've established ourselves slowly but surely. So when we go into the World Cup, then how much can we expect, despite them playing on the biggest stages? As a team, cannot underestimate tournament experience. I think we always tend to forget that, whether it's Real Madrid in the Champions League or what have you. There's a feel, there's a touch that I think is hard to explain, but I think as a team, you need to nurture. And that's the only thing that is holding me slightly back, and why I counter to everyone else's optimism, take it a bit more of a careful position.
2 more questions real quick. Who's your pick to win the World Cup? Or picks. We can do favorites. It doesn't have to be one team, but top 2, top 3 if you need.
I think oh, it sounds so uninventive, doesn't it? But I would love to, I think France. I think France will win. I'm not going to try and be more clever than that. I would love to say Brazil. I'm just a bit uncertain about their qualification and how that went by. Argentina again. I think yeah, but how original is it saying Argentina and France again as the favorites? But I think also the weather will play a role. You are based in Greensboro. I played in North Carolina. I played across the U.S. for my college days as well. Listen, for a Norwegian man, at the very least, to play in that heat is a tough one. It changes the rhythm of the game in terms of. I think that will play a determining factor as well. So I think one, the degree to what you're used to, but also B, the style of football that you're playing as well. Because I don't think we can expect the same level of intensity because of this either. Add on to the fact that players are coming off long seasons as well. So I think that will play a role. Do I have an answer to that? Not necessarily, but I think France for me is the safe pick.
Cool. Last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Norway, the Norwegian football team, Norwegian football culture that you find particularly interesting or fun that you think people should know or might want to know?
Well, I think we've covered the most here. I would say that when Norwegians go abroad, we are very extrovert. We're somewhat kind of we're a welcoming culture at that, but we're a bit more introvert. We can't keep it ourselves. But when the summer comes out, add on to the fact that we go abroad, we are very social, very delightful people. So for anyone listening to this and seeing Norwegians out and about, seeing us watching the games, and they will be on the East Coast as well, which is beneficial for us with the time difference as well. Go up to the Norwegians. We love a good drink. We love a good football. We love life during these summer months. So I think this will be a good time to be a Norwegian. And then hopefully we can be there for a bit longer. But I think two of our games are in Boston. One of them is in New York as well. So it's a good destination for us to go to. But yeah, just crossing my fingers that we can extend the party beyond those 10 or 12 days that the group stages last for.
Cool. Marcus, where can people find you again?
You can find us on the Fußball channel on YouTube, and then you can find myself on X at Markus Fjørtoft.
Cool. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, man.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure.
So my name is Hassanane Balal. So Hassan, A-N-E, Hassanane, like the word pain. Okay, so Hassanane Balal from the Iraq Football Podcast.
Cool. How would you say this World Cup's being anticipated by Iraqi fans in particular?
Iraqi fans are over the moon. We can't wait for it to start. But that's not to say that there hasn't been a lot of problems, such as issues with tickets, logistics. It's been very frustrating for a lot of fans. I have received genuinely hundreds, if not thousands, of DMs, people asking for PMA codes, asking for clarity on how to get hold of tickets. The truth is, it's been quite disorganized. And I don't know if that's to do with solely FIFA or whether our FA had anything to do with it, but it's been frustrating. You know, it's our first World Cup in 40 years. Someone like me, I'm 33, no spring chicken, but it's the first World Cup in my lifetime. So we're all eager to go and support and watch our country, but it's proving to be very, very difficult and very, very expensive. The tickets, the flights there, and that's just for us Iraqis living in Europe, the diaspora. For those living back home, it's almost impossible, especially with the current global climate.
Yeah. So I'm tending to find in these interviews and just generally that fans optimistic about what the team can do and just being there is fun. Journalists, people who cover the team as work, as a job, a little bit more pessimistic. So where is the kind of Iraqi media, both at home and the diaspora? Where are you guys at with the whole kind of World Cup thing? Is it still happiness or is there a bit more trepidation?
No, I think Iraqi fans are excited. We're looking forward to it. But with the media in Iraq, I think there's this unfair expectation that they want Iraq to go out there and challenge and fight and hopefully qualify from the group. But if you look at our group, the group is insane. We have literally the best team in the world in France. We have arguably the best team in the African continent, although Morocco would have something to say about that. And then you have Norway, who is also in incredible form. who beat Italy and other tough teams to qualify for this World Cup. So I think we have the hardest group in the whole World Cup. And I think very few people would argue with that. In terms of me, I just want us to go out there and see the boys make us proud, to show that we have a strong fighting spirit. And that's not to say I'm expecting us to get battered in the three games. No, I think we'll give all three teams a run for their money. We have a good side.
Cool. So maybe describe for people who are unaware, what is Iraq's footballing culture like? What does football mean to the people of Iraq?
Iraqi football culture is very special and it's very significant. And for me to really explain Iraqi football to you, I'll have to take you back to 2003. If we look at the invasion when the US and the UK invaded Iraq, it completely destroyed an already tough country that had faced years of sanctions since 91. And once Saddam was toppled, that led to a huge power struggle in the country. And inevitably, that led to a sectarian war breaking out in Iraq. In 2007, Iraq featured in the Asian Cup, and the team that played in that tournament was made up of Sunnis, Christians, Shia, and Kurds, people from different tribes, different backgrounds, different religions. And these players, against all circumstances, went out and won the Asian Cup. Nobody was expecting them to do that. These are players that, if you go back and watch the footage, the team didn't even have a proper kit. Like the goalkeeper for Iraq back then had the Italian jersey and just ironed on the Iraqi logo on top. These are players that were sleeping in airports. One of the players, the vice captain, he told me years later that when he had his flight booked, he had his return ticket back to Iraq booked the day after the last game of the group stages, because he wasn't expecting us to qualify. But this team went and they beat Australia. They beat Saudi in the final. They beat South Korea. They won the tournament against all odds, and they showed to the Iraqi people what it can mean when people come together in our country from different backgrounds and are united and they work together and help each other. And statistically, the sectarian violence actually dropped significantly after that victory. And the national team has continued to be a beacon of hope to Iraqi people for decades now. In 2015, we had, for example, ISIS. We've had a very, very tough 2 decades post the invasion. And one of the few things people have always looked towards for a source of joy and pride has been the Iraqi national team. Now, it's not always been easy. There's been frustration, there's been tough games that we've watched, games where we've lost, where we shouldn't have. And Iraqi fans are very demanding. Like, Iraq will play against Brazil, and fans would still want us to go away with 3 points. But that's the reality of Iraqi football. We love football and we love our national team, and we want to see us win at all times. So football is very special to us.
What's the current state, would you say, of Iraqi football? Is it in a relative healthy place or a relatively bad place, both domestically and the ability to maybe export players to parts abroad?
Yeah. It's not in the best condition, but it's definitely in an upward trajectory. So the current president of the FA, Dr. Adnan Darjal, he's worked very closely with La Liga to find ways to improve the current league, the structure, the stadiums, how to improve the quality of pitches. He's gone as far as introducing things like VAR. They've built several academies. I think Zaragoza, one of them. I think Real Madrid is one of them. So the at grassroots things are improving. The league itself is definitely improving. There's been a huge push to bring Iraqi players or Iraqi players who are born abroad, I should say. So the diaspora, bring a lot of them back to Iraq. Some of those players include Alexander Oraha, who used to play at QPR last season, Ali Haidar, formerly of Stoke City, Peter Guargis, formerly of Malmo in Sweden. So there's been a big pull to bring all these players towards Iraq to improve the quality of the league, to improve the brand of the league. In fact, they completely revamped the whole league in terms of its marketing. They've now turned it into something called the Iraqi Stars League. So quality football's improving, the marketing's improving, people are taking Iraqi football much more serious, and that's just back home. If you look at the National League, things have improved tremendously. There's more resources now invested into Iraqi football. There's been a huge drive to bring a lot of the diaspora towards playing for Iraq. We have huge footballers playing in top leagues like England and Ali Al Hamadi, in Holland like Zidane Iqbal, in Poland like Hussein Ali and Amir Al Amari, and plays in Australia, Norway, Denmark, the US. We've been actively seeking all these players and trying to bring them towards the national team to form, I wouldn't say like Morocco, where the entire team is made up of diaspora, but I think right now it's roughly half half. Half home based players, half Iraqi based players to build a team that represents all. And this has been a huge drive and a huge reason as to why Iraqi football has improved recently.
So let's get into the qualification of it all. So was it easy? Was it hard? How did it go?
We had the longest qualification campaign in the history of international football. So I think that answers your question, bro. It
Yes.
was grueling, but it was a tournament or a qualification campaign of 3 stages. It started off absolutely incredibly. We had the manager from Barcelona and Spain, the assistant manager under Luis Enrique called Jesus Casas. Now, he was always assistant manager. He was recruited as part of that La Liga relationship that was formed by the FA, and he was brought in, and it was his first gig as first team manager. Started off all rosy. I think we won pretty much every single game of the qualification campaign in round two. Now, they tend to be easier games, to be honest with you, but hey, you're only as good as the teams that are in front of you, right? And we were performing really well. We beat teams like Indonesia 5-1. I think at one point we beat like Philippines 6-2. We were just playing very good football, very exciting football, and it was all going well. We went to the Asian Cup again. Group stages were incredible. We beat Japan 2-0. I think we ended um, their unbeaten run. I think it was something like 13 games, and they played us, and we beat them. We beat Indonesia yet again 3-1 in the Asian Cup, and we beat Vietnam. Then we faced Jordan in the last 16, I think it was. And this is where the wheels came apart. We were getting battered at halftime, and we somehow turned the game around. We were 2-1 up after halftime. We made some substitutions, and then probably the team talisman, Ayman Hussein, got sent off for over celebrating. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about whether the decision was right or wrong. It was wrong. But the manager just had essentially a breakdown. He was unable to recover from this loss. He kept chopping and changing and making rash decisions in terms of tactics. And slowly, the wheels came off in round three. And we were actually competing for first position with South Korea, I think, with only 4 games left. But then we played against Kuwait at home. Everyone was expecting an easy victory. Kuwait are considered minnows in Asian football. And we were 2-0 down with, I think, 15 minutes to go in front of 65,000 Iraqi fans who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Luckily, we managed to literally equalize with the last kick of the game. The last kick of the game. It was nuts. The stadium erupted, and it was like, okay, no problem. We're still in second position. We're still going to get that first position ahead of South Korea. The game 4 or 5 days later was against Palestine, held in Jordan on neutral grounds. But, I don't know if you know much about geopolitics in Jordan. There's a lot of Palestinians. So they all turned up in their tens of thousands to support Palestine. And yet again, we were leading 1-0. I think there was like 25 minutes left. The manager made some unforgivable substitutions and took off all our tall players, took off some key defenders. They end up scoring twice from set pieces, from headers, and that was the beginning of the end for Casas. In comes Graham Arnold, and he has gone back to basics. He's kept things very simple. He's reverted back to a 4-4-2 rather than five at the back, which is what Casas was continuously experimenting with. More importantly, he's kept a very stable squad. He's relied on width. He's gone very tight defensively. We've improved a lot. We were leaking goals previously. Now, no, it's a lot better. And in 13 games, we've won 8 against tough competition. And we've drawn twice, and we've lost 3 games. The first one to South Korea in the qualifying campaign, where Ali Al Hamadi, our striker, was sent off after 20 minutes. We lost 2-0. And then the 2 other losses came against Algeria and Jordan in the Arab Cup, which is essentially our second string team, where a lot of the diaspora players couldn't attend. But even then, we were playing a very good Algeria team. We lost 2-0, but we had a player sent off after 2 minutes. And then against Jordan, we lost 1-0 on a penalty. So I think generally the team's in very, very good form. I speak to the players very, very regularly. Half the squad I'm in regular contact with, and they're in very good mood. They're positive. They're excited by the new manager. They are looking forward to every single game, and yeah, they can't wait for the World Cup, and neither can we as fans.
So wasn't there the third part of qualification where you guys had to go to the playoff?
Yes, so round 3 we finished in third place, which meant we qualified to the playoff. The way the intercontinental playoff is, at least from Asia, is that the the teams that finished third and fourth went into another round. So there were 6 teams in total. In our group was Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, and Iraq. In the other group, it was Qatar, the UAE, and I think it was Oman. I can't really remember. I think it was Oman. Yes, it was Oman. Now, here's the thing that was quite shocking for, I think, all the teams involved. The prior agreement before the teams had qualified was that whoever had the highest ranking across the FIFA rankings would be the one that hosts their group. Iraq were higher than Saudi Arabia at that point, but it was decided that Saudi Arabia will host the group, and then Iraq and Indonesia would have to play against Saudi in Saudi, which was insane. This gave Saudi the home advantage. If you look at the Iraq game, it was a complete packed stadium, and the atmosphere was wild. Not just that, Saudi also benefited from having their game played on a Tuesday, and then the second game, I think, on a Tuesday as well. So they had a huge break, whereas Iraq only had 3 days gap between the Indonesia match and then the Saudi match. So we went into that game absolutely knackered. The interesting thing is that Saudi went through, they hosted their group. Qatar also went through, they hosted their group. In my opinion, that this is shocking. Both groups should have been played on neutral ground. So I feel Qatar's group should have been played in Saudi, Saudi's group, our group, should have been played in Qatar, just to make it fair. But yeah, it's no coincidence that both teams that were on home ground, they qualified. Now, this meant Iraq couldn't qualify from round 4. We had to go to yet another round. We had to play against the UAE now in round 5. And this was, again, a very tough game. I don't know if you guys know much about UAE. UAE is basically Portugal light. All their players are from Portugal, Brazil, Argentina, and they just give them passports and they get them to represent the UAE. So it's a tough team. We went and we literally won the 2-legged tie with the last kick of the game. It was a penalty, and Amir Al Amari, shout out to him. He had the cojones to put it away in a packed Basra stadium, 65,000 people watching. It was pandemonium. It was insane. And then we qualified. Luckily for us, it meant that in the intercontinental playoffs, we were the seeded team. We only had to play one game. So we played the winner of Bolivia versus Suriname. And yeah, I was there in Mexico, and it was the best 2 weeks of my life. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, all in all, it was nuts. It was 21 games of pure chaos, mayhem, excitement, tears, some blood was shed as well. But we made it finally.
So I've been asking people what's the form been like since qualification, but because your qualification has lasted so long, I guess the question to ask someone from Iraq would be, do you know what friendlies they have scheduled before the World Cup and what do you anticipate will happen in those friendlies?
Yeah, so it's not confirmed, but it very much looks like we're going to be playing Spain in Spain, and we're
Okay.
going to be playing against Cyprus in Spain also, before flying over to the US, where it's likely we're going to play against the Ivory Coast. So I think two tough games. Cyprus is not going to be a walk in the park, but I think they're a team realistically we should be beating. And it will be good to see the team go out there and show what they're made of. It's going to be an extended period for the team to get together, work on their fitness, and just bond, spend a lot of time together. So hopefully, a win against Cyprus will continue to improve the mood of the squad and the team. I think Spain's an interesting one. I think it's a win-win scenario. You go against Spain, you lose, you learn some lessons, you learn how to face France, which is the second game that we play. No problem. We can kind of see what to expect there in terms of what it's like to play an incredible team. The last time we played Spain was uh, in the Confederations Cup in 2009. This is probably the best Spain side ever. We lost 1-0. They scored on the 65th minute. I think it was, is it Torres, I think, who scored their winner? It might be. But anyway, yeah, we didn't get battered. Iraq, when the going gets tough, we really do somehow keep things tight at the back, and we die on the pitch. The players give their everything. I think people who are expecting Iraq to just get rolled over and just battered, I think they're going to be in for a pleasant surprise. I hope so. Anyway, we might come back and look at this interview and see we've lost substantially, but I really don't feel that's going to be the case. I feel
Mm.
like it's going to be a tight match against France, and I feel like it's going to be very similar against Spain. Am I expecting us to win? No, obviously not. But I think it'll be maybe a narrow loss if we're lucky. Maybe we get a draw. But you know what? It's football. It's 11v11. Crazier things have happened. We can go and win the game. And the good thing for the Iraqi players is that there's no pressure. They're going to go out there, just going to enjoy it, have fun, and yeah, it'll be a good learning experience against Spain. And then we go to the Ivory Coast. I think that one's going to be the last game before the World Cup. It's going to be an interesting experience as well. Ivory Coast, big footballing country. It's going to be interesting to see how we do there. Again, I think it's a game we can win. We can, if we can physically impose ourselves on them, and if we can be smart with how we keep things tight defensively and take advantage of any chances that come our way.
Cool.
It's
So
exciting.
what for sure. What senior players do you think are in a good moment to perform well? And maybe are there some young prospects out there who you think this World Cup being on that stage is going to be good for them?
So the Iraqi squad generally is a very, very young team, to be honest with you. I think we have the eighth youngest average squad in the entire tournament. So it's a very young team. In terms of senior players that everyone's going to be looking to for guidance and reassurance, the first one is definitely going to be Ayman Hussein, who's the one striker that scored the winner against Bolivia. His goal is what sent us through to this World Cup. He's the talisman. He's someone that is now a public icon in Iraq. Everyone loves him. And he's someone who also 5, 6 years ago was genuinely being ridiculed. He was the most hated player in Iraq. His story is incredible. His dad was killed by Al Qaeda a decade and a half ago. His brother was kidnapped by ISIS and is still not found 10 years later. So he went from being someone who experienced all those challenges to now being the talisman of Iraq, the one of the best strikers in all of Asia. It's an incredible story, and I can't wait to see what he does at the World Cup. The only other senior players I would point to, and I say senior, I think Emir Al Amari, who plays in Poland, I think he's 27, 28. He's been amazing. He's the one who scored that penalty against the UAE in the last second. So he's a big player. You could look at the captain, Jalal Hassan, who's the goalkeeper. But to be honest with you, I think he's going to start on the bench. But just his presence alone in the tournament with the squad will be there to guide them, calm them down, reassure the players, when the going gets tough, which it probably will do. But other than that, no, the whole squad is very, very young. In terms of me pointing out particular players, well, you have Zidane Iqbal, currently at Utrecht, formerly of Manchester United, incredible footballer. You have a centre back called Akam Hashim. A year ago, no one had even heard of this guy, and now he's probably our best defender. He's absolute monster at centre back. You're gonna see him. I can almost assure you, this kid is going to get a deal in Europe somewhere once they see him perform this World Cup. And then that gives you players like Ali Al Hamadi of Ipswich, currently on loan at Luton, trying to hopefully get them into the playoffs for the Championship. He's a huge player. He's played in the Premier League, and again, still very young. Just turned 24 last month. You have also Kevin Yacoub. He's playing in Denmark at Aarhus, who are currently the team top of the Danish league. He's come back from 3 years of ACL recovery, and he's starting now for his club. He's going to potentially be playing in the World Cup. These players have had insane stories, man. And I know this not just because I'm seeing in the news, but because I'm in touch with these players every single day. I've seen them in hospitals. I've seen Kevin. Kevin was staying in my house. I was looking after him after his operation. I've seen what these players have gone through. Now see these players at the World Cup playing against the likes of Mbappe and all these superstars, Haaland. It's insane. But I tell you what, these players deserve it. They really do. They've been through so much, and now the world's going to see what they're about.
So with all that said, it is. I want to say objectively, it's the most difficult group at the World Cup. I try to stay away from absolutes, but it is the
Yeah.
hardest group at the World Cup. What is Iraq's floor and what is their ceiling? And as you said, it seems that the populace is very demanding. So on top of what's the floor and what's the ceiling, is there pressure to succeed, however success is defined?
There is always pressure to succeed with Iraqis. Iraqis are a hard to please bunch, and they're stubborn. Iraqis are very, very stubborn. They're gonna go into this game. France, who's that? We should beat them. I promise you, there will be people with this attitude, but there will be pressure. But I think realistically, people involved in the game itself will not think that way. The fans can say what they want. No one's really on a global stage expecting us to go out and beat France. In terms of what the floor is, I think we are expecting the team to go out there and compete and make us proud, to not roll over. And I know for a fact that's what will happen. If it was a game where there was pressures and everyone was expecting us to go and win, then I'd find that a lot more grueling and demanding on the players. But no one's expecting that. So the players are going to go out there. They have nothing to lose. They're going to go to enjoy the game and potentially, hopefully, perform very, very well to get more recognition on a global stage in terms of scouts, media, people watching them, followers, etc. I think that's the minimum expectation, and I think that's what will happen. In terms of the ceiling, I would be shocked if we got out of the group in the top two, but I wouldn't be shocked if we managed to get up through the third place. And I think we can definitely walk away with a win, maybe a point at least in terms of getting a draw. The Iraqi team is hard to beat. They work very, very hard. They die for the shirt. They are very proud to be Iraqi. But we have clear weaknesses. We don't really create much in terms of chances, although recently we have been in good form. We've been scoring a lot more than we were previously. Like I said previously, we keep it tight at the back. We're hard to beat. So it's not going to be easy for anybody else to come and just take 3 points away from us. So do expect us to compete. Probably don't expect us to top the group, is what I'm saying.
Who's your pick to win the World Cup? And which team from Asia do you think will go furthest?
I think it's hard to look at anyone other than France. I mean, they're probably going to be unbeaten besides the game when we beat them, probably. Uh, Unlikely, but no, I think it's hard to look past France as the team that's most likely to win. In terms of Asia, Japan are always a good team, but I think Iran will do surprisingly well. Their group is very, not easy, but it's the most winnable. And the players are going to go into that tournament with a lot to prove. And I really wish them good luck. You know, what they're going through right now is very, very tough. I can't imagine what it's like to go through all of this and then go into the US territory and be expected to perform after the president of the US has literally made threats against your safety. It's atrocious. It's horrendous. It should never happen. But I'm sure the players are going to want to have their reply in the pitch, you know, and they're going to show everybody why they deserve to be there and why they're better than the US and why the tournament should never have been hosted in the first place.
Last question. Is there anything I haven't asked about Iraqi footballing culture, anything like that, that you think is particularly interesting that people should know or might want to know?
I think the world is going to be shocked and amazed at how fantastic Iraqi fans, I know the Iraqi people are. When we were in Mexico, tens of thousands of Iraqis turned up to Mexico, and the Mexicans couldn't believe how much they were enjoying having us there. Whether it was them partying with us, whether it was seeing that a lot of Iraqis have actually gone and learned Spanish and were able to communicate with people there, how much we embraced their culture, how much we wanted to meet Mexicans and bring them in to dance with and celebrate with the Iraqis. When I was in the stadium in Monterrey, a third of it was Iraqis, a third was Bolivians, but the other third were Mexicans supporting Iraq. And there's a reason. It's because they loved us and we loved them. But I had some very honest conversations afterwards when I spoke to these Mexicans and I said, guys, like you came here and sorry, we came here and you saw us and you were shocked. Why? Like, what were you expecting us to be like? And they straight up told me, man, we were expecting you guys to just be crazy terrorist fanatics. That's all we hear about you guys from the US. And I said, you know what? It's funny because when I was telling people I'm going to Mexico, they kept warning me, be careful, they're all drug dealers and cartel members there. I think the key lesson from that is never trust what comes out of Western media when it comes to propaganda and what these people are like. This is my second time in Mexico. I was there last summer, just traveling and learning about Mexico. I knew what to expect. I knew Mexicans were amazing. In fact, every World Cup since Iraq have never qualified, I've always supported Mexico because I've always considered their culture very similar to ours. And I think this time round, I'm hoping other countries can now see Iraq for what it truly is. But not just Mexico now on a global stage. We're going to have a lot more cameras on the World Cup. We're going to be playing against three different teams and also three teams in the friendlies. So I'm hoping people can see a beautiful side to Iraq other than what the Western media continues to push as a narrative that, oh, Saddam Hussein, ISIS, Al Qaeda, terrorism. This is all the world knows us for, which is sad because we were the victims of all of this. We suffered more than anybody under Saddam Hussein, under ISIS, under the US invasion. That's not fair if that the people now see us as the perpetrators of this when we were the victims. So it's now an opportunity for us to show the world actually who Iraq really is. What does it mean to be Iraqi? That we come genuinely in peace and love and prosperity. I'll never forget a video that went viral when I was in Mexico of an Iraqi guy my age. He saw a woman with her two young baby, like toddlers, selling flowers, and he bought everything she had in stock and he just handed it out to all the locals. They were confused, like, why are these Iraqis so nice? I had several videos go viral in the millions because I decided that instead of just focusing on football, I went hiking and just showcased to the Iraqis back home. Man, look how nice Mexico is. It's not like what you see in Hollywood, which is just desert and the screen's orange. No, actually, like it's a beautiful country. And the Mexicans couldn't believe that this Iraqi guy is coming and he knows a little bit of Spanish and he's showing how nice our country is. They've never had that. So yeah, I really hope football does this time what it always does best, which is unite people and bring them together. Because that's why me and you are having this conversation.
Thank you for that answer. I really enjoyed it. Hassanane, like pain. Thank you for taking the time. Where can
Pleasure,
people find
bro.
you one last time?
So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Iraq Football Pod.
Cool. I appreciate you taking the time again. Thank you, bro.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.